So here I have a 2012 F350 Super Duty. This one's got the 6.7 power stroke. Haven't used this truck for a few days. It's just been sitting in the garage. But I came out here this morning and found a little river of fluid flowing out from underneath the truck. Not something I wanted to see. Turns out this is antifreeze. I've already crawled underneath there trying to figure out where it's coming from. There's antifreeze everywhere running down the side of the block. So I traced it up to the top end. And what I found, grab a flashlight here. Best I can tell, I've got fluid on this top end hose back to the radiator. It's wet on the top here, and if you kind of look down on the top of the block, I can see looks like orange fluid down there. So I'm thinking it's coming from this hose. You know, to be honest, that would probably be the best case scenario. That'd be probably one of the easiest things to fix. But I'd like to be sure, so I guess that's my project for this weekend, is to do a little more diagnostics and see if I can figure out where that's coming from. Okay, so here we are again, trying to figure out this coolant leak. Now what I can do is fill it back up and start the engine, and while it's running, try and look around and see if I can figure out where it's coming from, and hope I get lucky. Probably not the best way or safest way, so one other thing I can do is a pressure test. So you need some special tools for that, and probably not something you have, but what I did is went to the local parts place, auto store, and rented or got a loaner tool of a pressure test device for coolant systems. So what this does, it comes with some adapters that you can put on to where your radiator cap goes, and then it has a little pump that pumps up pressure, and hopefully that'll help you find the leak. Now for my truck, I'm also going to need this adapter set because I don't have a traditional radiator cap like you would have on an older vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and hook these things up, and we'll give it a try, see if that works for us. Okay, so I've got this pressure pump installed. So here's the adapter screwed on to my overflow tank, which is where the pressure cap screws onto, and this one's a 16 psi cap, and then you adapt that to the pump and pump it up, and I pumped this up. So I pumped this one up to 16. It takes quite a bit to do that. The other thing is, the first time I tried this, I was getting leaks. I could hear this leaking. It took me several tries to get that to seal up. I'm guessing it was probably just gaskets were all dried out, probably hasn't been used in a while. So I just lubricated the gaskets and put it back together and made sure it was tight. And so it seems to be holding. I think I pumped this up a couple minutes ago. So it's still at 16. And I'm not seeing any obvious signs of leaks. So I'm going to let this sit a little bit and just see if it stays holding pressure. Or maybe I'll come back and crawl underneath and see if there's anything dripping. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this rest for a little bit, and hopefully I'll come back and have something I can find. So I've let this sit for over an hour. It's still at 16 psi. I've been out here several times checking it. I've crawled underneath, just not seeing anything that's leaking. So unfortunately, the pressure tester did not help me find my problem. I'm assuming that it probably has something to do with the engine needs to be warmed up and the thermostats need to be open. So I think the next thing I'm going to have to do is top off the radiator and take it for a drive, and hopefully warming it up will let me find the leak, and then I can fix it that way. So that'll be my next step. So as I was putting away this pressure test equipment, I remembered that it had an adapter to be able to test the cap. So this one's supposed to relieve at 16 psi And right now it's holding, so if I pump it up again, so there the pressure is dropping back down to 16. But now when I first did this, I think something in the cap was stuck, because it would actually let me pump it up to peg the gauge, and it would stay there. And then finally it must have broke loose, and now it seems to be working again. So I wonder if that was maybe one of my problems, is maybe the cap stuck and it built up too much pressure, and something let loose, leaked a bunch of fluid, and now that and since I was only pumping it up to standard pressure, it wasn't leaking. But probably what I should do is just get a new cap just to be sure. And but I'm gonna fill up the coolant and take it for a drive and see if it is still leaking. But so that might be part of the problem as well. So that would be something, if you do get one of these kits, be sure to check your cap and make sure your cap is working correctly. Okay, so I just ran out and picked up a gallon of coolant and a new cap. There's the part number, and it is the same 16 psi cap that I had. I did go ahead and pressure test this just to be sure, and it relieved right at 16 psi, and I couldn't get it to go any higher than that at all. So I thought I'd give the old cap another test just to be sure. So there's 16. And there I'm able to get it to go up well past 16. And it's kind of holding right there at about 20. The new cap would not do this. So there, right about 20, I think it finally relieved. And now it dropped back down. So I do think there's something wrong with the old cap, so I'm glad I got a new one. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, fill it up and put the new cap on. I want to get you caught up to a couple things I did off camera here. So I took the truck, moved it out of the garage, and I just took a garden hose and just tried to rinse the area down, kind of in the valley between the heads, get all of that coolant rinsed out of there. So when I did the next test, if I saw coolant, I knew that was something that had just leaked out. So I brought it back in the garage, I filled up the expansion tank, and then I'm using the pressure tester to put pressure in there, which will force the coolant down into the radiator, and then try to get some of that air purged out of there. So you pressurize it, it forces the coolant into the radiator. When you let the pressure off, then any air that rises to the top will come back into the expansion tank. Do that a couple times and try and get all that air purged out of there. But when I was doing that, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, let's see if we can get a view of this, but the bottom of this fitting right here, I noticed a drip, and it's right there. You can kind of see where it was dripping out and see that coolant off the bottom of that fitting there. So that tells me that the leak is there. And I also went ahead and looked up on this top side here, and on this end of that same hose, I can see where it looks wet again, and it's got an orange tint to it. I don't know if you can see that very well. So it's kind of sitting below the hose, down on the top of the housing for the thermostat. And I've got just a white paper towel here. If I reach down in there and try to wipe some of that off, I don't know if you can see that very well, but what I wiped off of there is, it's a little orange. So that tells me there's a leak on this end as well, which is what I thought from the beginning. But I'm guessing the coolant level had dropped low enough that this hose probably was empty. And so when I pressurized it, there was no coolant to leak out. Now I've left this sit for an hour again. at 16 psi and it hasn't dropped. So what I did earlier, just pumping it up with air, was not good enough. It's not going to leak down. You know, maybe if I left this for a couple days, it might drop a little bit. But so I guess that's a lesson learned. When you're doing this, you probably want to fill it back up with coolant to make sure that you can actually find the leak. So I guess what I'm going to do is get some parts ordered. Now I believe the ends of these are just an O-ring fitting. So I think you can get just the O-rings, but what I'm probably going to do is replace this entire hose, because I think I noticed it had been rubbing like right in here. So I want to make sure that that I don't blow a hose later on, and you know, hoses do go bad, and this hose is probably as old as the O-rings are. So I'll get those parts ordered and we'll get them put on. Okay, so my parts have arrived. I'll show you those here next, but first I wanted to show you how to take the old hose off. It's really very simple. All you do on the end of the fitting, there's a metal clip, and you just get a flat screwdriver underneath there and get it started. And then what you're trying to do is get that hook pulled up to that next level, and it catches right here. So it was down here, and you pull it up to there, and do that on both sides. And so when you've got it released, that clip is just sitting there like that. Now the one on the other end of the hose is, let's see if I can get some good light in here, that the clip that I'm reaching for with the screwdriver is directly underneath the fitting. So you can't even see it. But if you take the same flat screwdriver and go in from this side and just lay the screwdriver against the fitting and kind of feel your way back to where it catches. There, so I've got it in place. I don't know if you can see it moving, but then all I need to do is pull that one back as well. So got that one back. Now I did fill this back up with coolant, so there's coolant in the hose, or at least part way, because we saw it dripping. There is a pepcock on the driver's side of the radiator that you could pull out and try to drain some of that back down. I'm not going to bother with that because it's up inside there anyway, and it's still going to make a mess. Even if you put a bucket under there, it's probably going to miss. So I've already had plenty of this leak out. I'm just going to I'm going to start with the other end and just pull this end of the hose off, because it's the lower end anyway. Not a lot drained out, but some did. Well, that pulled off really easy. So that pulled off that end. So there shouldn't be anything up here if it drained on the other end. So wiggle it a little bit, pull it back. And there, the rest of it went. So now you just give it a turn and fish it out from underneath all this stuff. And so that's all it takes to take that hose out of there. Very simple, very easy. So it should be just as quick to put the new one back in. Okay, so here are the parts I ordered. I ordered both O-rings and a new hose. The 1069 O-ring is the larger O-ring. It goes on the radiator side. And then there's the 1070 O-ring. That goes on the thermostat side. And then you see here, there's the part number for the hose. One thing I didn't notice, and I don't think the diagram showed it, but the hose actually comes with new O-rings and the clips. So I guess I didn't need to order those. I'll be sending the O-rings back. It did not show that in the diagram, I'm sure of that. But one other thing I wanted to show is, see if I can hold the flashlight and the camera here. On the O-ring, there we go. So on this O-ring, there's a white retainer and then the O-ring sits behind that, and the O-ring is noticeably higher than the white retainer on the new hose. On the old hose, the O-ring's pretty flat. It sits almost flush with that white retaining ring. So that tells me the O-rings were smashed down, and if I set my finger in here, you can see there's space there, and on this end it's pretty flat. So the O-rings were smashed and not coming back to their shape, so that does tell me they were worn out, so good to get them replaced. So I'm going to go ahead and put the new hose in. Okay, so here's the new hose just setting on the radiator end. If you notice, there's a groove right here. That's where the clip needs to go to. So if I line that up, it should slide on about that far. So we'll go ahead and work that on there. So it's in there, and if you wanted to, I think you could take the clip completely out and see the groove, but it should be on there. And then you just push the clip down, and that's it. That's all it takes to get the hose on. I did the other end already, so now I'm ready to top it off, and then I guess I have to clean up my mess. So we'll get that set up, and then I'm probably going to take it for a drive and test it for a few days at least, and make sure that the leak is going away. And I guess I'll show you a video of that as well to finish up. So I'll be back. It has been a few days since I replaced that hose. I've driven the truck a couple times, gotten it up to temperature, and then it's cooled back off, so I know all that's good. I do not see any signs of leaking on that fitting. Climb up in here, I'll take a look. So the cover for the thermostat appears to be dry. Trying to look down in the valley, I don't see any signs of coolant down in there, so that's all good. And then the expansion tank is still up to the proper level. And best of all, the garage floor is clean. No puddles there. So just review quick. If you get one of the pressure testers for looking for leaks, be sure to test your cap. That was one thing I didn't do right away that I should have. And then when you do go to check it, you probably need to put coolant in it to replace anything that leaked out, just so you can that'll help you find the leaks, because that was another little problem I had. So hope this video helped you out. If it did, be sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.